Hello, all, and welcome to this episode of Ministry in a Mess podcast. Just want to give you a quick heads up. Sandy will not be on this episode, so you are not going to be hearing the amazing Sandy Bramer in this episode. I do apologize. She's a little under the weather, so this week you get all me, all Matt, all the time, and I apologize. I do apologize. My wife is the backbone to this podcast. I really appreciate all that she does for this show, and I really hope you appreciate her. You'll probably appreciate her even more after you're finished listening to this episode. But, yes, we'll get into the intro so you can hear my wife's voice for a little bit, and then we'll go on to episode 14 of Ministry in a Mess. Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Matt.
And I'm Sandy, and welcome to Ministry in the
Mess. Yes, hello and welcome to episode 14 of Ministry in the Mess podcast. My name is Matt, and I will be your host today. Yes, first I'll start off by saying thank you guys so much for listening to our podcast. It's been an incredible ride so far. This is episode 14, which means we are 3 months into the show, because we try to post, or we do post so far, every Sunday morning at 8 a.m., so that you get to listen to us on your way to church, or wherever and whenever you get to listen to Ministry in the Mess podcast. We thank you guys so much for tuning in when you do. It is an incredible blessing to have you all listen to us. It's so cool. I also like listening to my voice a lot, so this is going to be a fun episode to edit. Okay, we'll jump right in. This week, I will be talking about Mark chapter 5. So if you all will go ahead and grab your Bibles, I'm going to be reading out of the New American Standard Version translation of the Bible. So it might be a little different for you, but just you can have the verses up as you listen, and we'll go from there. As you may know if you've listened to the show, I'm a pastor at our church. I also teach our adult class often, Sundays and Wednesdays. So I'm taking this episode a little bit like a Wednesday night Bible study. Sandy and I typically do these Bible studies with kind of questions and different life application things. We'll see how this one turns out, but I really, really look forward to what we've got going on so far. So we're going to jump right in to Mark chapter 5, and I'll be reading the first 5 verses, then I'll stop, and then we'll go from there. So here we go, Mark chapter 5, verses 1 through 5. They came to the other side of the sea, into the region of the Gerasenes. When he got out of the boat, immediately a man ran from the tombs with an unclean spirit, met him. He lived among the tombs, and no one was able to bind him any more, not even with a chain, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains, and the chains had been torn apart by him, and the shackles broken in pieces, and no one was strong enough to subdue him. Constantly, day and night, he was screaming among the tombs and in the mountains and cutting himself with stones. Okay, so we're going to jump right in here. This is Mark chapter 5, verses 1 through 5. We see Jesus and his disciples arriving in the region of the Gerasenes. And this is a Gentile territory, so if that kind of orients you a little bit there. Immediately showing that Jesus' ministry, it extends beyond Jewish people. So we already see Jesus' ministry extending further than the Jews, because we know, as Christians, we have the gospel, and we are the Gentile people, but we know that the gospel is going to expand. In Mark chapter 5, it's already starting. This moment follows a dramatic calming of the storm on the Sea of Galilee. That was Mark 4, 35 through 41, which we read a couple weeks ago in our Bible study of Mark 4, where Jesus demonstrated his authority over nature And now Jesus is about to confront chaos of another kind. They meet a man living among tombs, isolated, rejected, and utterly tormented by evil. His condition is heartbreaking. He's uncontrollable, even by chains, and we saw at the end of verse 5, cutting himself with stones. We see his suffering is just tormenting his life. The tombs around him, we're kind of going to understand here, symbolize that the tombs around him symbolize more than just his physical surroundings. We see that these may represent spiritual death, vividly illustrating that the destructive power of evil when it takes hold of someone's life. So, I'll ask a couple questions, and you can answer as you're driving to work or driving to church or wherever, however you're listening. I kind of oriented these questions to an older audience and a younger audience, because I know, shout out to Connor, who listens to our show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Got some questions for you too, buddy. All right, so we'll start with question number 1. How does this man's inability to be controlled by the chains reflect the power of sin and evil? So we see, first off, and I'll say this question one more time because it's just me talking. How did the man's inability to be controlled by chains reflect the power of sin and evil? What does this teach us about our need for Jesus to set us free? Oh man, this is going to be a great chapter because we're going to get into just the breaking of chains here, and it's going to be so important to kind of match this situation with our own lives. And that's kind of what I want to do for us in this episode, and what we do in the show, kind of seeing the world around us and how we need to reflect Jesus' love and Jesus' compassion, how he treats people with the world. So how does the man's inability to be controlled by the chains reflect the power of sin and evil? Well, we know in our lives that sin is a slippery slope. If you sin, it's so easy to lessen the impact that sin has on your life. You can be sinning and not know that you're sinning, and it's just something that you do. But we know that Jesus saves us from our sin. This man is struggling. He is breaking chains. He is in a tormented state. We're going to see what Jesus does here soon. A question for our younger listeners, Connor, and also our others who listen. Thank you guys for listening. Why do you think the man couldn't be controlled by the chains? Why do you think, and I'll just say that again, why do you think the man couldn't be controlled by chains? What does it tell us about how powerful and strong this man was? Maybe he was strong. Maybe he was just so strong that he himself was breaking these chains. I mean, that could be the case, since that's probably what was happening. But yeah, we can see that this man is in need of some help. So I'll continue here in verse 6 through 13 as we see what Jesus does. So open your Bibles again, Mark 5, verse 6 through 13. Seeing Jesus from a distance, he ran up and bowed down before him. Whoa. And shouting with a loud voice, he said, "What business do you have with me, son?" Sorry. "What business do you have with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you, by God, do not torment me." For he has already been saying to him, "Come out of this man, you unclean spirit." And that's Jesus speaking. And he was asking him, "What is your name?" And he said to him, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And he begged him earnestly not to send them out of the region. Now there was a large herd of pigs nearby on the mountain, and the demons begged him, saying, "Send us into the pigs so that we may enter them." Jesus gave them permission, and coming out, the unclean spirits entered the pigs, and the herd of them rushed down to the steep bank into the sea, about 2,000 of them, and they were drowned in the sea. Holy moly. Holy moly. That may have been unexpected for you, not knowing this story. But yeah, we see Jesus confronting this man with an unclean spirit, confronting the demons. All right. Despite this man's torment and brokenness, this man runs to Jesus without hesitation. We see in verse 6, he ran up and bowed down. As if deep down this man knew Jesus was his only hope. Even the demons within this man recognized Jesus' authority and pled? No, sorry. The demons recognized Jesus' authority and plead for mercy. Demons have no power over Jesus. No power. And no power in your life if you have Jesus. I'll tell you that right now. When Jesus asks the demon's name, it responds Legion. Now, you may not understand that in this day and age. You may not know what a legion is, but in this time, in Jesus' time, the very early 1st century, legion was a term that referred to a Roman military unit, about 4,000 to 6,000 soldiers. So quite a few. This could emphasize the nature of the possession. Even this amount of the demons may be in this man. We see in verse 12, and the demons begged him. So we see it's a multiplicity or a multiple amount of demons here. But even a legion of demons is no match for Jesus. Even a legion is no match for Jesus. And that's true for you too, with your sin and your wrongdoings that you do in your life, that you need a Savior. We all do, and we have that in Jesus. Then we see a scene following this, and it's pretty horrific, you may say. I mean, God did create animals and men, and there's a... I don't want to get too long on this, but there's a sense of the creation order that animals and men were created in different times, but we'll continue here. The dramatic scene with the pigs follows. Verse... let's see, what verse is it? Verse 12. The demons are begging Jesus to enter a nearby herd of pigs. And then we see verse 13. Jesus gave them permission. We can see this in a couple different... let me double check before I say this, but I'm pretty sure we can see this in a couple different gospel accounts. Let me double check here. 1 second. I'll be right back, and then we'll touch on and see the other gospel accounts of this. 1 second. Okay, so I did a little research. It is in Matthew, Mark, and Luke's gospels. So we see here in Matthew 8, verse 28 through 34, but we see the demons, and I'm reading from verse 31, and the demons begged him, saying, "If you are going to cast us out, send us into the herd of pigs." He said to them, this is Jesus speaking, "Go." That's all he said. He said, "Go." And they came out and went into the pigs, and behold, the whole herd rushed down into the steep bank into the sea and were drowned in the waters. So we see that here we see Jesus' authority over evil. We see the value of human life. The destruction of pigs, we sometimes, again, what I was saying about human life versus the material possessions. The material possessions as in the pigs in this situation. We see fear in... I mean, you may see some fear, but we'll continue here. So, yeah, we see Jesus saying, "Go." That's all Jesus said according to the Gospel of Matthew. And the demons left. He gave them permission. He gave the demons permission to go into the herd of the pigs. And they did. The pigs then rush into the water and drown. It's vivid. It's hard to read sometimes. It's unsettling. But We see evil is destructive. Evil is chaotic. And evil leads to destruction. Sin leads to destruction. Life never does. We see evil creating chaos. Evil, again, and I'll say this one more time, evil leads to destruction in your life. Sin leads to destruction in your life. And I want to just hammer this point in. We all sin. We all do. Not a one of us is perfect, but Jesus is. He asks us to be holy like he is. Our friends may sin. Our family may sin. We sin. We all do. We need to follow Jesus. Turn to him. He gives us life. Sin takes away life. Okay, a couple questions from verses 6 through 13. Jesus confronting the demons. And I'll start with the young listeners. If you young listeners here. How would you feel if you saw the demons leave the man and go into the pigs? Especially if they ran into the water. How would you feel? What would you, in this situation, you're following Jesus, basically trailing Jesus as he's going throughout his ministry. And how would you feel? How would you feel if you saw the demons leave the man and go into the pigs? I think at this point, for me, I would be gung-ho. I would be following this guy. Yeah, it would be an interesting ride. All right, and you adult listeners, what is the fact that the demons recognize Jesus' authority, even when they are cast out, reveal about the nature of evil and its relationship with God? Okay, what I'm going to say regarding that, what is the fact that the demons recognize Jesus' authority, even when they are cast out, reveal about the nature of evil and its relationship with God? I think that is on its face. We see that evil has no place in relationship with God. Sin is the opposite of what God asks us to do. We cannot be with God and keep sinning. I've got another something I want to read. Oh man, look, sorry. This is just me, so I'm going to pause. I'll be right back. I've got something to read regarding sin, and then we'll come right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. I really hope you're enjoying this. I'm having a lot of fun just bouncing around. Okay, Hebrews 10, verse 26. Hebrews 10, verse 26. For if we go on sinning willfully after receiving the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a sacrifice for sin. What I want us to understand there is that if we keep sinning, it means that we don't care that Jesus died for us, that he gave his life so that we could have life in heaven with him. Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. I want us to recognize that. And recognize our importance in this. This is not just a one-way relationship where Jesus just gives his all and we can just forget about it. Just do whatever. Yeah, we've got to just be followers that Jesus asks us to be. And that's to go on not sinning. We are sinners. We will sin. But we shouldn't. We should follow Jesus. And if we do, maybe we'll stop sinning. We're never perfect. We will never be perfect until we are in heaven with him. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. We're not done yet in any way. We're going to keep going here. Verse 14 through 17 of Mark 5. Their herdsmen ran away and reported it in the city and the countryside. And the people came to see what had happened. And then they came to Jesus and saw the man who had been demon-possessed sitting down, clothed and in his right mind. The very man who had previously had the, quote, legion. And they became frightened. Those who had seen it described to them how it had happened, that the demon-possessed man and all about the pigs. And they began to beg him to leave their region. Beg him. The him there is Jesus. They began to beg him to leave. What? Instead of celebrating this man's healing, the townspeople are scared. Maybe it's because they lost the economic resource that was the pigs, or the fact that they might have been the food. But this could be that they were spiritually out of their comfort zone. Jesus comes in and does this stuff, and people are being changed in front of them, and they don't know what to do. They could be challenged. I think about the change in my life since following Jesus, and I think about the change that I see in other people. It's hard for our friends and our family to see this change when we start following Jesus, that we're not going to be the same. And I think that might be what's happening here. I think for the longest time, these townspeople saw the man who was demon-possessed and saw how he acted, and then one day this man just comes and changes it all. What do? They don't like to change. That could be our natural response too, even when Jesus comes bringing freedom and restoration. But sometimes we need a reminder that Jesus brings change in our lives for his glory, for our good. Now, that may be unsettling for us that really love to sin. And like I said earlier, sin is something that we can sometimes dilute, kind of lessen the responsibility on ourselves. But, Jesus calls us not to sin, like I said. But he also calls us to change. Sometimes we reject the change, which it means that we are rejecting Jesus, but we need to embrace the change. Okay, now a question for you. Why do you think the people wanted Jesus to leave, even though he helped the man? Why do you think the people wanted Jesus to leave, even though he helped the man? Now, I talked about that. Could be because of the change. They were scared of change and really didn't know what was going to happen. Could be this guy's going to change a lot of stuff, and they didn't want that. Okay. Do you think that maybe these people prioritized the material things over the spiritual things in this situation? Maybe they did. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and then I'll be right back. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you're really enjoying this. I'm having a blast. I really hope you are too.
Hey guys,
it's Matt
and Sandy from the Ministry in the Mess podcast.
We really hope you enjoy today's episode. While we don't have a sponsor just yet, we'd love to take a moment to connect with you. If you're enjoying this podcast, please leave a review or share it with your friends and family. It would really help us out.
You can also join the conversation on our social media pages or check out our YouTube channel for more content on living for Christ in today's world. Your support helps us keep these conversations going. Thanks for being part of our journey. Now back to the show.
Okay, we're going to jump right back in with verses 18 through 20. Thank you guys for listening again. And he was getting out into the boat, he being Jesus. The man who had been demon-possessed was begging him that he might accompany him. And he did not let him, but he said to him, this is Jesus again, go home to your people and report to them what great things the Lord has done for you, and how he had mercy on you. And he went away and began to proclaim in Decapolis what great things Jesus had done for him. And everyone was amazed. Yeah. How cool is that? Sort of. I mean, we see the healed man eager to stay with Jesus after being healed, but what more could you do if Jesus asked you to do this? Jesus sent him back to his family and his community to share his story. So we see what Jesus wants of us, and that's when he heals us to share. So we see the man's testimony is not just a personal story. This could potentially impact an entire Gentile region. That is the, and let me go back to the beginning, that is the Gerasenes, which is a Gentile area. This man could be one of the first missionaries, proclaiming the transformative power of Jesus to people who hadn't even encountered Jesus directly. We know that we need to share what Jesus has done in our lives to bring others to faith, and this is just another example. So, question: how would you tell your friends or family about something amazing Jesus did for you? I'll say it one more time. How would you tell your friends or family about something amazing Jesus did for you? And why is it significant that Jesus sent the man to his family instead of letting him follow him physically? We kind of talked about that, but yeah, I think it's specifically to share the gospel. How else are you going to share the gospel if you don't share the gospel? Okay, and that is the end of the first section. My Bible breaks it up there. We've got a different heading that changes from here. So I'd like to give, like I do in my class, we're going to do a couple theological and practical reflections, and then some application, some life application. So, a couple things we see here. We see Jesus' compassion. Jesus here has just crossed a stormy sea, and if you think about it, he crossed the stormy sea to reach this single suffering man. We see that is very, very compassionate and very willing to go to any length. Jesus is willing to go to any length to bring healing and restoration. It doesn't really mean he definitely will do that for you too. So we also see again Jesus' power over evil. We also see the power of testimony. We see this man's healing becomes a powerful testimony, spreading throughout the region, affecting countless lives. And we see that it could also begin to transform a community, his community. Maybe Jesus is calling you to do that too. Okay, a couple life application things. The man's chains, both physically and spiritually, were broken by Jesus. What areas in your life do you feel bound? And how can you invite Jesus to bring the freedom that he offers into your life? We also see overcoming fear. We see the townspeople, though they witnessed this incredible miracle, chose fear over faith. Do you do that in your life? Do you choose to be fearful in situations that God puts you in versus being faithful? How can you move past the fear and embrace Jesus in your own life? We also see testimony. Some of you may have a really incredible testimony. It may involve a lot of suffering, or you may just have grown up in church. And that's all right if that's your testimony. My testimony feels pretty similar to that aspect of growing up in church. I kind of knew that my life was meant for Jesus because I grew up in church, and I saw the transformative power of Jesus in the people that I knew in my own life. I knew I wanted to be different. I knew Jesus was the answer. I knew Jesus gives me purpose in life. I wouldn't have the joy and the purpose that I have without Jesus in my life. Maybe he can do that for you too. All right, we're going to keep going here. We've got Mark chapter 5 has 43 verses, and I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me and really only me this week. Again, let's pray for Sandy as she's healing and she's resting. My wife's really amazing, and she deserves a lot of praise. She does. So I really thank her for all that she does. Okay, we're moving right along. This one might be a little. This Mark chapter 5 is a little kind of disturbing in some places, but we'll just continue to see Jesus' transformative power through miracles and through healing and just awesome stuff. We see a lot that's about to happen. So we're going to continue in verses 21 and 24. Now, I want to do something here. I'm going to read a different translation of the Bible. Now, there are an incredible number of translations in the Bible. Too many to count, really. There's a new one that I found. It's not new. It's something that's been a translation for a while, but it's the Message translation, and it's really unique in the way that it reads, and maybe you need it in your life for if you're struggling with the Bible and you're struggling with reading the Bible because it's kind of dry, or you're reading a Bible that says these and thous and thou healeth me and stuff. That's your King James. But I just want to try this for a second. This is the Message translation. I'm going to read verses 21 through 24 of Mark chapter 5 in the Message translation. All right. After Jesus crossed over by boat, a large crowd met him at the seaside. One of the meeting place leaders named Jairus came. When he saw Jesus, he fell to his knees beside him as he begged, "My dear daughter is at death's door. Come and lay hands on her so she will get well and live." Jesus went with him. The whole crowd tagged along, pushing and jostling him. Okay, that's verses 21 through 24. Now we see it's a little bit is at death's door. So you can see that one's a pretty easy. That's a pretty good. I like that. It's easy to read the Message, but we'll continue. I'll keep reading in the New American Standard as we continue. But let's look at what just happened there. So we see Jesus returning from the region of the Gerasenes and immediately is approached by a synagogue leader, Jairus. He falls at Jesus' feet, desperately pleading for help. That's pretty impressive on a few ways to look at it. A synagogue official, a synagogue leader, Jairus. Now at this point, there are two competing pacts of the Jewish tradition. You have the Sadducees and the Pharisees. This could be one or the other. It doesn't specifically say, but these people didn't like Jesus at this point. Jesus was kind of turning some heads and kind of flipping tables, as it were. And we may see later in the book of Mark when Jesus does flip tables, and it may be in other Gospels. I kind of get the Gospels a little confused, but so yeah, we see this synagogue leader Jairus coming up. His daughter is deathly ill, as we read in the Message translation, at death's door. We see Jairus willing to risk his reputation and social standing by publicly seeking help from Jesus, Jesus was viewed with a sense of skepticism at this point in his early ministry, but we see Jairus has profound faith. Despite social pressures, he trusts in Jesus' power and hopes in Jesus to heal his daughter. This is a point where we see the importance of faith is so much more important than pride and public opinion. We as Christians should be different than the world. We should be holy as God is holy. Faith is so much more important than our social standing. Yeah. Okay, a couple questions. Why do you think Jairus was willing to do anything to help his daughter? I think we as parents see that, and I think it's important for us as Christians to take things to Jesus, to take our problems, take our failings, take our wins. I think we should take everything to Jesus, and I think our children are pretty important. Also, how does Jairus' humility, by falling at Jesus' feet here, challenge us to approach Jesus with our own needs? I think it's important to recognize that we are servants of Jesus. We are to fall on our own pride and fall from what we think is right to follow Jesus. So I think we can be humble like Jairus. On our knees, fall on all of the things that we want to do in our lives. Jesus is more important. Let's continue in verses 25 through 34. In this one, I'll jump back to my New American Standard Translation. I'm excited. I like this translation. Okay. A woman who had a hemorrhage for 12 years and had endured much at the hands of many physicians and had spent all that she had and was not helped at all, but instead had become worse. And after hearing about Jesus, she came up in the crowd behind him and touched his cloak. For she had been saying to herself, if I just touch his garments, I will get well. And immediately the flow of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And immediately Jesus, this is so important here, perceiving in himself that power from him had gone out, turned around in the crowd and said, who touched my garments? And his disciples said to him, you see the crowd pressing in on you, and you say, who touched me? And he looked around to see the woman who had done this. But the woman, fearing and trembling, aware of what happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. Oh man, I'm sorry. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be cured of your disease. Wow, you guys. This is one of the most incredible, there's so many incredible stories in the Bible about Jesus healing and these miracles that we're seeing. But this one, I don't know. Something about it is touching me. Just thinking about this woman for 12 years was dealing with this. So what's interesting here is in the Bible, in the Old Testament of the Bible, which was the Bible for these people of this time, the first century Jews here, those people trailing Jesus, not specifically following Jesus yet, but like trailing him, following in his path to see what he would do. The physical pain that this woman experienced with the bleeding for 12 years, by the way, also made her ritually unclean, which in this society, in the Jewish world, made her, again, ritually unclean, which isolated her from society, from gathering and worshiping God. She had to be separated because she was ritually unclean, because she was experiencing this flow of blood that most women experience once a month. Wow. Again, we see that she spent all of her resources. No physicians, no doctors could provide improvement or anything for her situation. She was desperate. And what do we do when we're desperate? We reach out to our friends, to our family. And this woman stepped out in faith. She touched the hem of Jesus' garment, his cloak, the fringe of his tassels on his garment. She thought that just by touching him, she'd be healed. Now, she also considered, possibly, we don't know this, it's not specifically said, but she might have understood the risk of her unclean status by touching someone could also make them unclean. But she knew that Jesus was the real deal. Her faith clearly was stronger than the ritual impurity that she might have been aware of. I love fantasy novels. I love magic. Just silly little things like that. And I love to see that we get a little hint of Jesus' power here. Verse 30, and immediately Jesus, perceiving in himself that the power had gone out from him. We don't often, we talk about the miracles and power and things like this, but it's really neat to just read that. But Jesus was aware of what happened. He knew someone touched his cloak or his garment and didn't know who. However, the question is not for his benefit. I've heard this from a few pastors and a few teachers that Jesus knew who touched him. He didn't need her to answer, but he gave her a chance to come forward. What does she do? She does. She comes to him, falls down before him, and Jesus calls her daughter. This again is his compassion. We see that his healing here is not only physical, but also social and spiritual. Jesus is breaking down walls in this situation because, again, she would have been ritually unclean. Jesus forgets about that. He breaks chains. He accepts. He brings her into the kingdom, into his care, because we are no longer under this law that makes us unclean if we are menstruating as women. Women menstruate. This is probably a conversation Sandy should be having, but that's about all I'll say about that. We can see that Jesus doesn't care about the spiritually unclean or the ritually unclean, because he knows that it's not about that anymore. It's about faith. And that's what Jesus wants, is our faith. Doesn't really care if we've touched dead bodies or different things like that, or eaten certain meats and things like that. It's the Old Testament is our history because we have Jesus. I like that stuff, but yeah, Jesus didn't care about her spiritual or ritually unclean. A couple questions. Why do you think Jesus stopped and asked who touched him, even though he already knew? I talked about that a little bit. He needed her to testify to what she needed. It might be scary for us in the world to talk about Jesus, but we have to. What is this woman's willingness to risk everything to touch Jesus teach us about faith in desperate situations? It's just that. When all else fails, faith and Jesus are there. And lastly, in verse 34 here, what does it make you feel like when Jesus called her daughter? How did it touch you in any way? Did it get you emotional? Does it feel like Jesus is talking to you? Daughter, your faith has made you well. And just for fun, I'm going to read the Message translation because sometimes the message is kind of fun in certain things. Yeah. Okay, so it says, Jesus said to her, "Daughter, you took a risk of faith, and now you are healed and whole. Live well, live blessed. Be healed of your plague." So yeah, we just see it's a little fun sometimes. Okay, yeah, I really we're going to continue here. We are almost done in Mark chapter 5, and I really appreciate you guys hanging out. I'll keep saying that. I won't stop saying that. Yeah, it's awesome. This is so much fun. I miss Sandy for sure. She's upstairs resting. So, yeah, I'll be right back. I'm going to take a little break, take a little drink of water, maybe grab a Pop-Tart. I love Pop-Tarts. Okay, be right back. Okay, I'm not going to get a Pop-Tart. I'll get a s'mores Pop-Tart later. All right, here we go into the home stretch. I'm talking a lot. I hope you guys are enjoying this. All right, we're going to keep going. Verses 35 through 43. We are going to finish the chapter here. So let's see what we got. While he was still speaking, and this is Jesus, people came from the house of the synagogue official, and that's Jairus again, from a little bit ago, saying, "Your daughter has died. Why bother the teacher further?" Here we go. Are you ready? Are you ready, listeners? Okay. But Jesus, overhearing what had been spoken, said to the synagogue official, "Do not be afraid. Only believe." And he allowed no one to accompany him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. They came to the house of the synagogue official, and he saw a commotion, and people loudly weeping and wailing. And after he entered, he said to them, "Why are you making a commotion and weeping? This child has not died, but is asleep." And they began laughing at him, putting them all outside, he, being Jesus, took along the child's father and mother and his own companions and entered the room where the child was in bed. I'm going to get to read some Aramaic here, so be prepared. And he, taking the child by her hand, he said to her, "Talitha cum," which translated means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Guys, I'm sorry. I'm getting emotional again. And immediately the girl got up and began to walk, for she was 12 years old. And immediately they were completely astonished. And he gave them strict orders that no one was to know about this. And he told them to have something given her to eat. That is how Mark chapter 5 ends. Wow. Oh my gosh. We see Jesus raising this little girl from the dead. That is amazing, incredible, awesome, holy cow. So let's jump right in here. So verse 35 and 36, we see Jesus finishing his conversation with the healed woman. Messengers arrive to inform Jairus that his daughter has died. They say, "Do not trouble this man, trouble this teacher." They think that the situation is beyond hope. What does a Christian do? We respond as Jesus would respond. Do not be afraid, only believe. And here's what I'll say. Jesus does the healing. Jesus does the miracles. He does it all. If he wants to raise someone from the dead, he can. I'll continue here. Jesus says, "Do not be afraid, only believe." Telling Jairus here to set aside his fear and trust in Jesus despite knowing death is death. But for the creator of the world, well, has he got other plans? We see then Jesus taking a small group, Peter, James, John, and the girl's parents, into the house. We see that this is personal. This is just for these disciples and the girl's parents. Jesus said, this girl is not dead. She's just sleeping. Jesus is mocked to his face, laughed at. These people who are laughing have no faith. No faith. And here we get Jesus speaking Aramaic, which is the language that was spoken that time, Aramaic and Greek and Hebrew. And I hope I said that right. Talitha cum. That's Talitha Talitha cum, which means, little girl, I say to you, get up. And what we see, like so often when Jesus calls people, immediately, she got up and began to walk. Jesus has authority, as we read earlier in this chapter, over the demons, over sicknesses and disease, and over death. Jesus can do it all. He can do it all for you. He's done it all for me. Jesus can do it all. I also like the touch, the practical touch that Jesus says, give her something to eat. Because she's been asleep for a little while. But we see that he's also kind of bringing this down to reality, because this is real. She's alive. She's awake. She's not dead. Whoa. Oh my gosh. Okay, guys. Let's ask a few questions and then get into some theology. Maybe. All right. How does Jesus' words, do not be afraid, only believe, challenge you to trust him? Man. Oh, man. That'll get you. Because I got to be honest with you, I'm a scaredy cat when it comes to a lot of things. We've talked in previous episodes of the podcast how worried I am of these kids, my kids. I don't want them to be hurt. But, man, it's tough. There's a lot of times in my life where I have to only believe. It's tough. But that's life. That's life as a Christian. That's life of someone who needs Jesus. It's tough. But you have to believe. You have to have faith. Faith is all that there is. You can only do so much in your life. And your so much is usually not good enough to do what needs to be done. That is for the creator of the world. Okay, now here's a fun one. How do you think Jairus and his wife felt when they saw their daughter alive and awake again? Wow. I'm almost speechless to think about this situation. Guys, this Mark chapter 5 has been really touching for me. This has been a really impactful chapter. Man. Okay. We'll get into some theology here, a little bit of kind of theological reflections over what we just read. We see faith that overcomes barriers, and we need to do that in our lives too, but we saw Jairus, the synagogue leader, despite social pressures or societal pressures, he's going to what the Pharisees and Sadducees would consider a crazy person, a blasphemer. Blasphemer, for those not aware, is just the Jewish leaders believed that if you said you were God, you were blaspheming God. So Jesus said, in other words, Jesus said that he is God. So Jesus is a blasphemer in their eyes. But here we see Jairus breaking down the walls, just despite the cultural and societal pressures, and he's there. We also see the woman who reached out despite her unclean status. We just see to be with Jesus, your barriers will be broken down. We also see the power of personal encounters with Jesus. Jesus didn't just heal the woman physically. He restored her emotionally, socially, calling her daughter, signifying she is accepted by him. By him. We also see comfort and hope in Jairus and his family in their darkest moment. We see also the timing of Jesus' miracles. While the woman's healing was delayed by Jesus, she had to experience the trauma and the trouble for 12 years. But that didn't stop the healing. That didn't stop her from reaching out to Jesus. It also didn't prevent Jesus from helping Jairus. Jesus' timing was perfect. He used this moment to teach about faith and trust. Sometimes we experience trials and struggles, and we just have to have faith. We have to trust, and we have to have faith. That is your application for today. A persistent faith. An unwavering faith in the face of obstacles, trials, and struggles. Faith. Trust. And believe. We also see hope. Jairus' story reminds us sometimes when we're hopeless, like the death of a loved one, Jesus is able to bring new life and hope. Jesus also restores. Not only healed the woman, but restored her dignity and her hope as she encountered Jesus. As Jesus' followers, we are called to do the same. We live in a world of a cancel culture. You do something wrong, you are shunned from society and from all that you have done in the past. Everything you've done is in shambles because of a mistake that you've made. Jesus says, no. I want you. I don't know why I said it like that. Jesus wants you. Wins or fails, Jesus wants you. That's about it. Okay, you guys. I've been talking for nearly an hour now. After Mark 5, which we'll read in a couple weeks, Jesus will continue his ministry. Keep performing miracles and teaching. But Jesus is going to be facing increased opposition. Jesus will eventually, Mark 6, which will be the next, in about 2 weeks, we'll get to Mark 6, but Jesus will return to his hometown, Nazareth, where, oh my goodness, he's going to encounter doubt and disbelief from those who knew him as a child, which is going to be a fun thing to read. But Jesus will continue, no matter the societal pressures or anything. He then will send out his 12 disciples to spread the message of the kingdom of God. Okay, a couple things to leave you with questions, and then we'll jump into our wow moment. So here we go. Where do you need Jesus' restoring power in your life right now? Whether you're struggling, in pain, or in need of Jesus, where do you need Jesus' restoring power in your life right now? Who in your life might need encouragement to trust Jesus with their struggles? How can you live out the faith demonstrated by the people in these stories? Big asks for you today. All right. I'm going to step away. We're going to jump right. We're going to slip into our wow moment. So, 1 second.
Well, we're going to move right on to our wow moment. Word of the week. Word of the week.
You know I just had to get my wife's voice in there again. Oh, I miss her. She's still sleeping. She needs her rest. Okay, we're going to jump into the, as you heard, word of the week. So last week was Matthew 5, verse 9, Let me get it pulled up here. Oh, Matthew 5, verse 9. Oh, yes. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. Oh, wow. Yeah, that one was super impactful. I mean, often I struggle with being peaceful. So that was a great, something that I really needed to pay attention to. Something I struggled with, my peace. But yeah, so that was our last week's verse. I did not get Sandy's comments on that one for this week, but that's what it is. Our next week's Bible verse is going to be James, chapter 1, verse 12. Let me get that pulled up here. James chapter 1, verse 12. Blessed is a man who perseveres under trial, for once he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. Man, we have a great and gracious God who will do anything for us. All he asks us is for a little faith. And we see that a little faith will bring the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. We see that it is very, very important to... Oh, sorry, I'm pressing the wrong buttons. It is so important to have faith, because as we persevere in our faith, we know that we will receive the blessing. No, I'm sorry, I just keep repeating the verse, but yeah, we need Jesus. You know, that's what we're looking for. If you hear me clicking around, I really apologize. I am looking to see if we've done this verse before. I feel like we have, and maybe I just said it randomly. I think that's what happened. I think I just said it randomly. Yeah, because I haven't found it yet. When we've done these... No. I'm getting there. I appreciate you guys hanging out. No. 2 more. Let's see. Did we do it? Nuh-uh. Okay, 1 more time. Did we do this verse? No. Awesome. Okay. Blessed is a man who perseveres under trial, for once he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. There it is. That's about it. That is one last piece. I'd also like to get my wife's voice in one more time. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Our worship of the week. Worship of the week. Worship of the week. That was in honor of Wicked.
Oh my gosh.
Worship of the week.
That's Parks and Rec.
No, I was doing the...
What was your song?
Yeah, here's my song.
Oh, I love my wife so much. Oh, I hope you guys are okay with this solo episode, but you still got a little bit of Sandy. Okay, so her song is The Truth by Megan Woods. I did get this from her. This song I'd never heard before, but it's new, 2024. Just awesome stuff. How many times can you hear the same lie before you start to believe it? The enemy keeps whispering to me. I swear these days, it's all that I'm hearing. I used to know who I was. Now I look in the mirror, and I'm not so sure. Lord, I don't want to listen to the lies anymore. The truth is, I am my Father's child. Holy smokes. And it gets even better from there. Oh, man. I'm going to cry. Why am I going to cry? This has been such an emotional episode for me. I need my wife. She is my rock. Okay. Sandy's song, The Truth, by Megan Woods. My song is Less of Me, by Bridge Worship. This song, if I can get the lyrics... Yeah, let me get the lyrics pulled up here. Let me see if this is the right song. It sure is. I'm listening to it right now, sorry. Yeah. I can see you are moving in this place. I can see your people worshiping your name. But I'm blinded by the light. Well, goodness. All right, you guys. This was unplanned. But I'm blinded by the lies the enemy speaks in vain. This is my song, Less of Me, by Bridge Worship, where Sandy's song, The Truth, says basically the same things. Wow. Oh, man, and this song, I want to go further than just saying, I believe. Oh, man, you guys. Hope that cuts deep. Holy cow. Good gracious. So make less of me and make more of you. Boys and girls, that's our episode. Hi. This was emotional for me. Holy cow. Yeah, this is... Whew, Mark 5, just get on ya, man. Holy goodness. Awesome stuff. Okay. That's it. I talked for an hour and 6 minutes. You did get a little bit of Sandy, which I'm really, really happy about. But thank you guys for joining me in my Bible study of Mark chapter 5. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share it with a friend or family. Oh, man, sharing it helps so much. Gets us out in the world and gets other people listening. It's really cool. I see the amount of people listening, but I don't know who is. So it'd be awesome if you shot us an email or something. Email ministryinthemess@gmail.com. Goodness gracious. I think it's that. You guys. Yes. ministryinthemess@gmail.com is our email. Shoot me an email. Whatever. I'm here for it. Sandy and I both have the access to the email. So thank you guys so much for listening. Until then, remember. Oh man, Sandy says it so much better. You know what? I'm just going to let her say it. Here's Sandy as we exit the episode. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Make sure to come back next week for the next episode of Ministry in the Mess. Until then, remember, Jesus loves you right in the middle of your mess. You don't even have to clean it. So do we.
What? Bye.